It's time for the Financial Crisis Talk Center with Ken Gross and David Einstandig from Thav Gross.
Credit card debt is number one. I view it as financial cancer.
40% of your gross income is going to just pay the debt service. You got no chance of getting out.
I would give up my credit score to get rid of debt.
Here's your host, Ken Gross.
Good morning. Welcome to the Financial Crisis Talk Center. It is a lovely day, and I see David Einstandig sitting there across the table from me. Good morning, David. Nice to see you this morning. Glad to see you made it to the show. No soccer games, no events, no board meetings. You're here.
Board meetings, yes. Soccer tryouts, of course, for the next 2 days. But it is what it is. I'm glad to see you, Ken. You're looking chipper today.
I feel chipper.
Yeah? What else you got?
We have a special guest with us today. We have Cait Sherman from the Goldstar Law, an employment lawyer. Welcome, Cait. Glad to see you here.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to talk about employment law issues today, and we're also going to talk about the city of Detroit, the emergency manager.
There's a lot going on, as well as Chrysler makes an announcement this week, and it's going to be pertinent for the next couple weeks because we're going to have to see what happens over the next couple months because they're freezing their pensions for their current workers, which is what General Motors did about a year ago, which when you sort of look at what the emergency manager, one of the big, there's bullet points that came out over the last couple weeks in his report that it's going to take some time to digest because it's a couple hundred pages. One of the things is he's saying the legacy costs must be addressed, and it's all the same issue. So the city is going to follow the private sector.
Yeah, in Detroit's situation, I think there was a good, the Free Press did a good summary of the points of his presentation, and they also, which was 130 pages. I've been going through that presentation, but I think the most glaring relevant point to the predicament that the city faces is that it says by 2017, 65% of total city revenues, up from 42.5%, are related to pension and health care obligations. And then it goes on to say, and the point that he made is no other city has similar obligations exceeding 20% of revenues. That just says it to you. I don't know where Chrysler fits in a similar situation, but that's an untenable situation that cannot possibly resolve itself without drastic steps. But think about how difficult, and that kind of shifts back to Cait, too. I mean, you're going to start getting phone calls over at Goldstar Law from people who have pensions. Suppose you've worked your entire life, and you've retired, and you have vested pension benefits, and all of a sudden, you're sitting there watching TV, and you're finding out that there's going to be major cuts to what you're going to receive. That's a mind-blowing experience for the person who ends up taking the cut.
Yes and no. I mean, join the club. You've got two sects. I'm
70 years old. I can't go out and what am I going to do? So I got to go out now. I got to start driving a cab. Right. I can't go back to my career.
I
understand.
Can't go back on the auto lines. You're on a fixed income. You're on a fixed income, and you're not necessarily going to be able to raise your revenues because you're not. How difficult in the employment world is it for a 75-year-old person to get a job today that hasn't worked in 20 years?
Well, technically it's illegal to discriminate on the basis of age, but it can be difficult.
I think they should call Dave. Everyone gets a job from Dave.
Dave?
Dave the movie.
Dave the movie.
Kevin Kline.
I know what you're talking about this big, a fish this big. I understand.
Yeah, and Murray was the accountant. And if Dave couldn't find a job for somebody, he called Murray, his friend, and said, Murray, just you've got to just give her a job. She's a really good bookkeeper. Just put her in, give her something to do. She'll come out okay. He goes, Dave, I've done that for 32 people already. I only have 12 desks.
Bottom line, though, is nothing I read the summaries of the report. Nothing surprised me, and nothing was new, in my opinion.
The one thing that I thought was, I don't think it was just, recently the Attorney General came out and said you can't touch the artwork. And my reaction to that was right off the bat, well, the state can make its own determination of its interpretation of law, but when you get into the federal bankruptcy court, you're going to have the problem with the federal bankruptcy code trumping state law in many respects. So I don't think the state can make that determination, or kind of just came back and said that's still in play. And, that's something that I've addressed in an op-ed that I'm going to put up on the website over the course of the next week.
He gave the politically correct answer, but what Orr has done is, Orr has basically said he's finding out how bad it really is, in my opinion. We know it's bad. Everybody knows it's bad. Is it $5 billion? Is it $4 billion? Is it $3 billion? He's saying $20 billion is your number. This is the reality. That's the only new information that I think that I'm gleaning from my end is it's $20 billion. And basically, he also said unsecured debt, stop paying today.
I can only think of one other governmental entity that would be as, I'll use the proper terminology for radio, messed up as the city of Detroit's finances. Can you guess which entity I'm thinking of?
Are we talking about Pontiac?
No. Kate, you have a guess?
No, I don't know.
You guys?
We
I would say the United States government. They're allowed to print money and carry whatever deficits they wanted. They have done. The United States government has done exactly what the city of Detroit has done for the last 20 years. Just spend money that it doesn't have. The only problem is municipals and state governments have laws that say you have to operate within a balanced budget. How Detroit managed to jiggle their numbers around to pretend like they had a balanced budget, that would be a topic for discussion for probably about 10 years, for the 10 or 20 years that the people should be in jail for having done it.
I think you're right. These are going to have such a drastic impact as your phone's going to start ringing a lot more, Kate. A lot more.
I think it's ringing a lot right now. Have you been listening to those commercials and seeing them on TV?
I understand.
Goldstar Law? You've got so many issues where people. Yeah, we're gonna walk through those issues this morning.
What do you do? Right. What do you do? How do you even get through and vet what it has a legitimate ability for recovery and not? And we'll get into that after the lead-in. But that's the biggest issue is, in my opinion, do you have a viable wrong or don't you? And everybody who loses their job or gets a pay cut thinks that they've been wrong. The question is it of a legal nature?
What do you think if the argument for the pension firms are that you can't, that it's a state right? If you could make the determination that state right trumps the bankruptcy laws and you can't cut their benefits, you think of how much that would handcuff the ability to come up with any kind of a viable solution for Detroit?
Will never happen.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to kind of focus on an employee and kind of walk through issues that you may not realize that you have with regard to your employment. We'll be back.
Don't let legal problems destroy your family or your life. Get the justice you deserve. I'm Sabrina Cronin of the Cronin Law Firm, and I'm here to make things right. My firm handles family law, business law, and even criminal law. We can handle all of your legal needs. So whatever you're facing, I'm here to get you justice. You can't afford not to call. Call 855-CRONIN-LAW today.
I couldn't get out of the car. I couldn't run or exercise. I couldn't work.
Dr. Lewis Radin believes that pain shouldn't have to wait. His Spine Specialist of Michigan is a comprehensive center dedicated to helping you manage pain now. Expect the latest techniques and personalized care. Why suffer another minute?
He's the best. I tell people that he's the one that saved my life.
Make your appointment with Dr. Radin. Call 248-792-9496.
No one ever thinks that a serious injury can happen to them, but it can, and it does. And it can happen to you. And when it does, you need a fighter in that courtroom for you. Call me, Ben Johnson. Automobile accident, police misconduct, medical malpractice, product liability. You know what you're up against, how hard it is to get answers. When all you want is justice, call me, Ben Johnson. Whatever your legal crisis, I will fight for you. Call me today.
Do you have tax problems, unfiled returns? Facing levies on wages in your property? You need an expert, not a cartoon character or salesman. Thav Gross is your solution.
You need to look at the big picture. That's what we do. We develop a plan that's right for you.
I had major tax problems. I didn't know what to do.
We did. We sat down together and solved your tax problem.
No more letters, no more phone calls. They saved me.
Call Thav Gross, 888-235-HELP.
Going from hourly to salary seemed like a good career move, but now you're working 60 hours a week instead of 40, and you aren't getting paid any of that extra time. You're stuck, right? Wrong. You can be on salary and still be entitled to overtime. If you've been wrongly denied such pay, you may be entitled to that and more. Goldstar Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Goldstar Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
All right, welcome back. We've got Cait Sherman from Goldstar Law with us today in the studio, and we're going to flush through employment issues. I know we lost David a little bit, but he should be back shortly. I think he ran to get some water or something. Before we get into it, I want to thank our sponsors, Cronin Law Firm, Venn Johnson Law, Goldstar Law. I always appreciate that, Kate. Samasco Law, Double Action Shooting Range and Gun Shop on DeQuinder and Madison Heights, Spine Specialists of Michigan. And I also want to mention, we don't have any seminars coming up for a while because we're kind of taking a seminar break for the summer. But people should know we just wrapped up our last 2 seminars in June. And in between now and the time we have seminars, you can still, if you've got financial issues and you want information, you want to know what your rights are, we do offer free consults. You don't have to wait for the next seminar. If you come in and make an appointment, we'll sit down, meet with you, walk through your issues and everything else. And as a special bonus, if you make the appointment and mention that you heard it on the radio show or on the television show, you will get a free copy of my book, Dump Your Debt. But you have to mention it. If you don't mention it, they're not going to give you the free copy of the book because books are limited. Everything in the world is limited. Well, David, I'm glad to see you made it back to the studio. You went, got a glass of water, and made it back in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but you only had 2 minutes for the break.
What's your point?
You were 30 seconds late.
All right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. You think next time we try and do a better job, move a little bit faster, and get here on time. I'm a type A type of personality.
Kate, why do you think his eyebrows are a different color than his hair?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
You don't know?
I do know, but it's only a half-hour show.
No, okay, that's fine. Which color, which are darker, my eyebrows or my hair?
Depends on the light.
Okay, it's because of the TV lights that are going on is what's going on. All right, now let's talk about employment law. All right, I want to focus, and here's the issue. I've got questions to throw out there, and these questions... I've kind of looked at Goldstar Law's website and got some good ideas there, and I've listened to the commercials. And there's lots of issues in employment of which I think people don't realize where they have rights and sometimes where they don't have rights, and it's a rude awakening. But I want to kind of just play with it and kind of we'll throw them out there and then talk about them a little bit.
Can I ask one thing, though, because you made a great point about employees knowing their rights and not knowing their rights. But, Kate, how often do you find that employers don't understand what the rights are? And there's a lot of violations out there that are not intentional. I just want to get out there as far as it's both ends of the street that don't understand what they're doing, I think.
Oh, that's absolutely true. It happens all the time, especially with the wage and hour type things. A lot of employers don't know what do you have to pay employees, when do you have to pay overtime, what an employee's rights are with respect to employment law. People know a lot more about discrimination and harassment, but there are a lot of other issues where employers sometimes just don't know they're doing something illegal.
So if you're an employer and you're listening to this show right now, you should pay very close attention because it's not knowing those rules that gets you into trouble when all of a sudden you get a letter or a phone call from a top-notch, aggressive employment lawyer at Goldstar Law. Now, here's the first question. This is kind of a little bit on more the obvious side. Does your boss make you feel uncomfortable at work? Well, I think I would be accused of, like, if I make people feel uncomfortable because I tend to be demanding. It's like, you know, is that a problem if you're demanding?
It depends. Typically, no.
Depends.
What that's really about is more sexual harassment.
Oh, okay. I was making sure of that.
There are 2 types of sexual harassment. There's hostile work environment sexual harassment, where there's harassment of a sexual nature that's severe and pervasive enough to offend a reasonable person. And there's quid pro quo, which is where a condition of employment like keeping your job or getting a promotion is based on your acceptance of sexual harassment.
All right, so let me just to clarify this from a standpoint of my end. If I create an environment at work that says if people are not friendly and congenial and welcoming to our clients in terms of making sure that they feel comfortable and they're at home, and I get mad because if someone was rudely greeted when they came into the office, that's not a hostile work environment, correct?
No, that's not a hostile work environment.
That's actually a good business policy. Maybe.
Maybe.
But I have to be nice about going about doing
Well,
that.
take it to the other extreme, Cait. What if you're now when we talk about boss, it could be an owner, it could be a supervisor, it's somebody, and it could be a coworker. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody of higher authority, correct?
It doesn't even have to be somebody who works there. Say you have a customer or a client who's always harassing you sexually, and you complain to your supervisor, and they don't do anything to protect you. They let the harassment continue. That's just as illegal.
And in Michigan, we see, even today, even though historically we've had a lot more, of sales representatives and independent representatives that are in work environments frequently where you could have constant contact between an employee and an independent rep, and we've seen those cases as well.
In that kind of a case, Cait, would it be important for the employee to complain to the employer of the circumstance in the situation so that the employer had a chance to remedy the situation?
Absolutely. For a sexual harassment claim, the employer has to be on notice, and on notice means the employer knows about it. So say you have an owner of a company who's harassing you. The owner obviously knows that's happening. You don't need to say to the owner of your company, stop harassing me, I don't like it. He knows he's harassing you. But the owner's not liable for something he doesn't know about or that she doesn't know about. If you have a customer, a client, a coworker, somebody else harassing you, the first thing you should do is make a complaint to your HR department, to your supervisor, to whoever you're supposed to complain to try and stop the harassment.
Now, if you had that situation, someone called you up in that situation, would you want to help them and walk them through on the process of complaining? Or should they just take care of that on their own and then come see you guys? How do you guys usually handle that?
Well, if somebody has a question about that, they can always call. The call's free. It's confidential. If you're not sure if you should call, the answer is yes, you should call. And if there's something we can do to help you, we will. If there's nothing we can do to help you, you haven't lost anything. It's free. It's confidential. No one will know you called.
And, for example, if you have a situation where it's a little bit more difficult, where the owner is clearly friendly or friends with or likes the person who you believe is the harasser, the person doing the wrongful acts, and you're sitting there as an employee, a mid-level employee or lower-level employee, and now you've got to go to the owner and say, hey, your buddy is crossing the line. You dealt with that as well. You can help them out.
Yes, we can.
Just so that we get it out there, that phone number is 1-800-WAGES-10, and you also can go to goldstarlaw.com. It's a great website to fill out that information and to get the information that you know. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I've got some other questions I want to ask about race and gender, disability, and then I want to talk about a couple more points. We'll be back after the break.
You like your job. What you don't like is the way your boss has been treating you. He's making comments about how you look instead of your work, and he's been touching you inappropriately. If you complain, is he allowed to fire you? Absolutely not. Unwelcome sexual comments, advances in contact are illegal in the workplace. Make him pay. Goldstar Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Goldstar Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
Every family has the family meeting, and we all know what that means. Dad's got dementia. What are we going to do? What's the care plan that the family has in place? Usually they don't, or they struggle with a care plan. When you go home tonight and you talk to your tax person and you talk to your financial person, say, what's the plan that you have in place? And as soon as they don't give you an answer, give me a call, because I can do it for you.
Financially strapped? Do you want to save your home?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Double Action, shooting center and gun shop. For the largest selection of guns, accessories, and ammunition, Double Action is your only pro gun shop. And now you can train with the best in our basic CCW course with the most comprehensive curriculum, the best resources, and most accomplished staff. Don't be fooled by cheap imitations. Double Action is the only place to get your CCW or renewal. Double Action. We're on DeQuinder and Madison Heights.
Carrying too much debt? Dump your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Thav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
All right, welcome back. We've got David with us. We've got Cait Sherman from Goldstar Law. We're talking about employment issues. All right, so right off the website, another one is, so obviously if you're being harassed, there's a potential claim there. Also, if you're being, they say you're being treated differently because of age, race, or gender. What does that then trigger?
Well,
and what should somebody do if they feel that way?
Discrimination is illegal if you make any sort of employment decision based on a person's race, religion, national origin, color, gender, age, height, weight, marital status, or on the basis of a disability. So any sort of adverse employment action, firing somebody because of that, not hiring them, not promoting, not paying them as much, anything like that.
All right, so what if you want to hire a receptionist for your building and the person comes in and their physical dress and their weight doesn't conform with what you're trying to do in the image you're trying to project? Is that a problem from the standpoint of the employer making a hiring decision?
Yeah, it can be, unless you have a legitimate business reason. You can't make the decision just because you say, I don't want somebody your age sitting at the desk.
Well, let me clarify your question. Wait,
if you're running Hooters?
Wait, let me clarify your question, because you made 2 points of that question. You said dress and you said weight. And that's a good question, because really, Cait, the latter, if it's based on weight, that's what we call a protected right. And Cait just gave a litany of those protected rights.
Is it a protected right as a basis of a disability, or is weight isn't a class? Isn't a class?
Weight is a separate class.
Weight's protected in Michigan. It's not protected under Title VII, but Michigan, as a state, additionally protects height, weight, and marital status.
Right. So we have federal laws that come into play, right?
Yes.
And we have state laws that come into play.
Right. And there's a lot of overlap, and you're always given the most protection. So if you're covered under just state law, you get that protection. If it's covered under just federal law, you get that protection.
Okay. Now, Ken's asked about dress. Okay, forget about no other protected, no other right.
I want to go on to another big
issue. If you don't like the way they dress and you make the decision on the way they dressed, is that a protected right?
Typically, no. If it's because of how they're dressed, because they're male or female, or you say you don't dress masculine enough, then that's gender discrimination because they're not conforming to a gender stereotype. If you just say you're dressed sloppily, that's not protected.
You got to really drill down.
If the employer complains that the dress is too long, that could be a problem. But if he complains that the dress is too short, that's probably not a problem. How's that? I'm just trying to come up with a little
That's the dumbest thing I've heard.
Thank you.
Ever.
Thank you very much. I want to move on to I thought it was a good one. To a different issue because we're running short of time.
I hope we can edit
What
this
about, do you work over 40 hours per week but always get paid the same salary? What is that referring to? Because I think that's a big area out there.
That's a huge issue. Some people can be paid on salary and not receive overtime pay, not receive time and a half for hours over 40. But that's a legal decision. Your employer can't just decide, I'm paying you this much every week no matter how much you make. You have to fit into what we call an exemption. Certain people, based on the jobs they do and their qualifications for those jobs, are allowed to be paid just a salary and not overtime.
Is David exempt? I mean, he's an attorney, he's a partner in our law firm, and believe it or not, he works more than 40 hours a week, and there's no way I'm giving him any extra money.
Yes, he falls under several exemptions.
Okay,
Thank goodness.
Well, wait, let me
you probably work 75 hours a week. I'd be dead.
But your paralegal's probably not exempt.
Well, how about a CPA versus an accountant?
It depends on...
That's a loaded question.
That's a hard one.
I know the area of the law as well.
It depends on their level of education. It depends on the amount of authority and discretion they have when they do the job. It can even just depend on how much you're paid. If you're paid a certain amount, you're considered highly compensated, and you're exempt for that reason.
Now, I know this is a hot topic real quickly I want to mention is, because we're so technologically advanced, but computer engineers and computer technicians are a real hot area now because there's a lot of uncertainty. Are they exempt or non-exempt?
Right. That's one of the biggest areas where employers get it wrong, and they say that you're on salary and you're not. There is an IT exemption, but if you're just a computer support person sitting at a desk, you're probably not exempt. The IT exemption is for people who do things like designing software.
And then if you're not exempt, you're entitled to overtime. That's what the people need to read. The interesting is, like you said, David, you do that area. You do it more typically from the employer standpoint, whereas Cait and Goldstar Law, you guys are focusing on the employee's rights, right?
Absolutely.
So we could be bumping heads in court.
Yeah, but it both, no matter who you're representing, it gets down to understanding what the law is, and that's what I got to at the beginning. There's so much confusion that it's not the employer that is absolutely doing wrong acts.
Right.
Those are easy cases.
Oftentimes unintentional.
But more often than not, isn't it the latter? There's not necessarily a clear intent to violate the law?
That's very often the case. And with wage and hour laws, you do recover more if the employer knows they're violating the law. There's different amounts of damages you can get. You can get up to twice the overtime you should have received, going back up to 3 years if the employer knows what they're doing is wrong and they do it anyways.
All right, so if somebody has a claim like that they think they have a claim, what do you want them to do? I mean, if you're listening to the show, you're watching this show, I've got Cait Sherman here from Goldstar Law. You're an employee, you think you might have claims. Do you want them to research it first, or should they just pick up the phone and call you?
The best thing to do is just to call us. You can call 1-800-WAGES-10. You can talk to one of our paralegals. They know what to ask. We know what to look for. And we can tell you the laws are complicated. There are a lot of different exemptions that may or may not apply. And we can tell you whether you should or should not be getting overtime.
I know we're running out of time, and one of the unfortunate things I also want to talk about was the at-will doctrine in Michigan, because basically if you just are terminated and there is no discrimination, and you have no written employment contract that says that you can only be terminated for cause, in that case, what does it mean?
Well, most employees in Michigan are at will, which means they can be terminated at any time for no reason or for any sort of legal reason, but you can't be terminated for a discriminatory reason. You can't be terminated for retaliation. If you're trying to protect your own rights, your employer can't terminate you because of that.
And the other side of the coin is, likewise, if you're an employee and you're at will, you can leave if you got a better opportunity. It's a two-way street.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
I mean,
as long as it don't violate a protected right.
We're out of time. The bottom line is, if you think you have a claim, don't give it up. Make the phone call, do the research, call Goldstar Law, ask for Cait, ask for one of the paralegals. They'll flush out the issues and let you know what your rights are. That's the smart play. Don't just assume the worst. Look to see if you have a better solution. It's a tough world out there. I want to thank our sponsors, Cronin Law, Ben Johnson Law, Goldstar Law, Simasco Law, Double Action Shooting Range and Gun Shop, who's going to join us for our next segment, and Spine Specialists of Michigan. Also, remember, if you want to do a free consultation, you have the right to call us at Thav Gross and come in, and if you mention the radio show or the TV show, you get a free copy of our book, Dump Your Debt.
And Cait, isn't it accurate to say that if there's any viable protected right that's being violated, once they call Goldstar, they're going to be able to meet and speak with an attorney if you guys believe that there's been a wrong, that there's a possibility there's been a wrong.
Yes, if we look at it and we think there's anything we can do to help you, we'll meet with you, we'll tell you what your options are, what potential rights have been violated, and what we can do moving forward.
There you have it. Cait, if you can, stick around for our next segment if you've got time.
Yes, I'd love to.
All right, we're going to be back with the Financial Crisis Talk Center. Thanks for listening and watching.